So the next thing that I want to talk about, UCLA and Chip Kelly defeated LSU 38-27. It was a really big win for UCLA, and there's a lot of people asking, are Chip Kelly and UCLA legit? Now, a lot of people are not surprised that UCLA beat LSU like I initially thought. Like, I initially thought that a lot of people were going to be taken by surprise, but there were also a lot of people who predicted UCLA to get the upset over LSU. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people don't even consider this to be an upset. Some people had UCLA as a better team than LSU coming in. So when you look at UCLA, I definitely feel like Chip Kelly and this Bruins team, they're for real. And even last year, they had, in my opinion, the best defense in the Pac-12 last season. They were really good getting pressure on the quarterback. They have a really good secondary. And now it's all starting to show this year, because how often do you think a Pac-12 team dominates a SEC team up front the way that UCLA dominated LSU up front? Doesn't really happen that often. Normally, we see a SEC team dominating a Pac-12 team up front. But when you look at Chip Kelly has evolved. You know, when Chip Kelly used to be at Oregon, what do you remember Chip Kelly in Oregon from? Being really fast, having guys who all you had to do was get the ball out to them out the backfield and they were taking it to the house. You think about D'Anthony Thomas. You think about the speed. That's what you used to think about when it came to Chip Kelly. You didn't really think about Chip Kelly as a guy who, was going to have a physical team that was going to pound the rock down your throat for over 200 rushing yards, that was going to be physically dominant. You didn't really think about it. You thought of Chip Kelly in the past as a coach who was more finesse. Well, now it looks like Chip Kelly has changed. Chip Kelly ran the ball for 223 rushing yards as a team. I've never really thought that I would have the day when I would say, Chip Kelly's team physically dominated. Never thought of that. You always think about Chip Kelly coach teams being really fast, being really good on the perimeter, and just being finesse. But this UCLA team is a lot different from the Chip Kelly coach teams we've seen in the past. And a lot of people, when Chip Kelly first arrived at UCLA, they were like, okay, he's doing too much. Why? Where's the offense that he had at Oregon? That's the Chip Kelly we want to see. But Chip Kelly evolutionized his offense. Once again, he has evolved. And we're looking at the UCLA team that absolutely beat down LSU up front. They literally manhandled LSU up front. And this is a Pac-12 team that did this. UCLA ran for 223 rushing yards as a team. A Chip Kelly coach team physically dominated an SEC team in the trenches up front. And it wasn't by finesse. It wasn't a lot of runs on the outside. It was a lot of runs up the middle. Literally. UCLA dominated LSU. You look at Zach Charbonnet, 11 carries, 117 rushing yards, 10.6 yards per attempt. Brenton Brown, 96 rushing yards, 5.6 yards per carry. This was a team that was physically dominated in LSU by UCLA. And their defense is really underrated. Really underrated. Really good getting pressure on Miles Brennan. Had a really good showing from the secondary. Even though Keyshawn Boutte went off, he had 3 touchdowns, 9 receptions for 148 yards. But outside of him, UCLA's defense was really good against LSU. And I never thought that a Chip Kelly coach team would be able to physically dominate a team up front. And not only that, play good defense. I think that Chip Kelly and UCLA, I think they're for real this year. And I'm really close to changing my pick of who I have to win the Pac-12. Maybe we overlooked UCLA. Maybe we just looked at the coaching record for Chip Kelly and UCLA and we just assumed that he would never be able to put things together. And it's easy to have these preconceived notions. He's going in, this is year 4, and this is the best start that he's had so far at UCLA. Now, you do have a really tough schedule ahead. You got to play Fresno State coming up. That should be a really tight game. Fresno State looks to be really legit this year. They gave Oregon a scare. That could be a potential upset. You got to play Stanford. Big game against Arizona State. You got to play Oregon. I don't really know if Washington, after losing to Montana, I think they're going to be really bad. Interesting to see how they bounce back. You got to play Utah, who is always a very formidable Pac-12 opponent. Colorado isn't somebody you can sleep on. Then you have that big game, the Battle of the Coliseum against USC. You got Cal. So, there's still a lot of football that has to be played for UCLA. But I definitely feel like Chip Kelly and UCLA, they are definitely legit. You have a very underrated defense that has a very good amount of pass rushers, a solid secondary, and on top of that, you have an offense that can just control time possession. Chip Kelly has always been a coach who's always been about speed. It's always been about scoring fast, getting things out quickly. I never really thought that Chip Kelly would change to be a coach who would put more emphasis on ball control. Controlling time possession. We've always heard Chip Kelly, his philosophy used to be, let's score fast, Let's get more possessions than the other team, but now it's more ball control. They want to ground and pound you. They want to physically dominate you. They want to impose the will on you. They want to control the ball. They want to win the time of possession battle. The old Chip Kelly coach teams of the past normally weren't winning the time possession battle because they were always scoring so fast. Chip Kelly has changed a lot. And it's taken a very long time to do so. UCLA fans are probably saying about freaking time. Dang, it took long enough, but it's happened. Chip Kelly, I definitely feel like this UCLA team is for real. And I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing them winning the Pac-12 and if we do see them appear in the New Year's Six Bowl game. I wouldn't be surprised. This is a team that is really good up front. On both sides. Their offensive line is solid. Their defensive line is solid. And on top of that, the passing game, I still don't really know how effective Dorian Thompson-Robinson is as a passer. He's still really shaky. Because I do feel like if there is a team that is able to stop the run of UCLA and forces UCLA to be a team that has to beat them through the air, I do feel like UCLA could have some struggles in that department. But as long as UCLA continues to have that ground game and that rushing attack at their arsenal, they can continue to be balanced. I think UCLA can go very far. I really do. That run game for UCLA is stout. Zach Charbonnet is a stud. I don't know where this was at Michigan, but he looks like an entirely different player at UCLA. I never thought I would have to say that Chip Kelly, his team would physically dominate somebody up front. You don't really think about it. And controlling time possession, literally. So, Chip Kelly has changed a lot. And it's taken a while for the transition. But I think this UCLA team is for real. And keep your eyes out for UCLA. Because this is definitely a team that could be in a New Year's Six Bowl game. Now, I'm not going to say they can make it into the college football playoffs, but this is definitely a very good team, and this team is for real, and their defense is for real. This probably is the best defense in the Pac-12 right now. We know Utah normally has a pretty solid defense. We know Oregon is going to be really good defensively, but UCLA has a really underrated defense. So, you guys let me know how you guys feel about Chip Kelly and UCLA. Do you guys think they're legit, or they're just, going on an early season Cinderella run? Every single year in college football, we have a team who kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's kind of like a Cinderella story. Last year was Indiana. The year before that, in 2019, was Minnesota. And maybe this year in 2021, UCLA could be this year's college football Cinderella team. So you guys let me know how you guys feel about UCLA down in the comment section down below if you are watching this on YouTube. But I think that UCLA is for real.